All right, Alexander, let's talk about the new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He's been inaugurated, it's official, and it's his turn now. I've been reading that he's actually, since we talk a lot about Sunak and what his policy is going to be towards Russia, I've been reading quite a lot of articles which state that he's very aggressive towards Russia and was a huge supporter of the sanctions and the war. I don't know how accurate that is, but I don't know. That's what I read about him. I think he's off to a rocky start. It seems to me. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't started yet, but everything I'm reading about him is suggesting that not much is going to change, and it might even get worse. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so, he is smarter than Liz Truss, so I don't know if that's good or bad, to be quite honest.
Not hard to be that, but anyway, he is. A number of things to say. First of all, your choice of the word inaugurated is exactly spot on right. I mean, remember, in Britain, prime ministers are supposed to be appointed. They're elected. First, they're elected through through elections, and then they are appointed by the king. I mean, that's the idea about that's the British constitutional process as it's been up to now. Rishi Sunak has not gone through that process, not to any real extent. He's just been inaugurated Prime Minister of Britain. There's been no election. Nobody's actually voted to make him Prime Minister. I mean, it's sometimes been suggested that the parliamentary party, the Conservative Parliamentary Party, voted to make Sunak Prime Minister, but of course they didn't. What happened was that we got all of these reports that a majority of Conservative MPs were supporting him, and first Johnson, and then Penny Mordaunt, the only two challengers, pulled out, and that left him the only person left in the field. If you go back a little while, by the way, you might remember that during the Democratic Party primaries in 2020, the same thing happened. People talk about Joe Biden winning the primaries. What actually happened was that Barack Obama telephoned all sorts of people, told them to all stand down. They all stood down, and that essentially gave Joe a clear run. Well, something very similar has happened this time. It's gone even further than that. As I said, he's just emerged out of a process which we've described at great length in our various programs where we've covered this crisis. Perhaps crisis is not the right word. This plot, this coup that has taken place in Britain. And what happened was Mordaunt was told unequivocally, don't challenge Sunak. Mordaunt's erstwhile supporters were told, don't even think about voting for Sunak, for Mordaunt, just as Boris's supporters were told the same thing. The Conservative Party outside Parliament has been completely frozen out of the process, even though, according to Conservative Party rules, they are the ones who are supposed to vote for the leader. And we now have Prime Minister Sunak emerge without any kind of election process at all. By the way, the same thing happened with Theresa May. And you remember how well that turned out. So this is a coup. It's been carried out by a faction within the Conservative Party, a very powerful faction, backed by all the various mechanisms of the establishment. They picked on Sunak as the person they wanted, and they've now managed to get him made Prime Minister. And it's the outcome they always intended and desired, and it's the outcome we always talked about. And what do you now have? You've already seen warnings about certain policies he is not allowed to change. So, of course, as Boris Johnson's Chancellor, as the Finance Minister, it was his job to work out and support the various sanctions on Russia. So now we're getting lots of media stories about how he was an enthusiastic supporter of sanctions against Russia. Maybe he has never had any plan or intention of changing that policy, of sanctioning Russia. In other words, of continuing with the economic war. That, I repeat again, publicly, he said less about it than some other ministers have done. But the fact is, he's now been reminded very publicly of the stance he took before, and it's a warning to him that he must continue with this policy. And he's not going to change anything substantial in Britain, because as he's come to power through a conspiratorial process, as he's not been elected either by the parliamentary party, the Conservative Parliamentary Party, or by the party members, he is now entirely dependent upon that group of conspirators, if you like, which, when I say conspirators, they're individuals, but they're also various institutions which put him where he is. He doesn't have his own distinct political base. He doesn't have, supporters out there in the country that will stick with him and will support him through any crisis the way, say, Margaret Thatcher had during the 1980s. He doesn't have a block of supporters within the parliamentary party in the way that, in fairness, Boris Johnson does. He doesn't have anything like that. He is entirely the creature of the people who put him in power, and he has no power to change anything.
So I remember when Greece got a caretaker prime minister. I believe Papadimos.
That's right.
My memory serves me correct. He was just dropped in, appointed, not voted on, nothing. Just take him, so that we can make sure that the European Union gets all their money, gets all their cash, and that Greece sticks to the austerity line. We don't want Greece, diverging from that. Italy, Draghi was a caretaker prime minister, just kind of, dropped right in there. No voting, no democracy, none of that. Is Sunak a caretaker prime minister? Has he just been dropped in to look over the UK to make sure that it doesn't, get any bright ideas or strange ideas to stray away from the globalist line?
That's exactly what it is. He is no different from Mario Draghi and Monti and Papadimos and all of these people. He's a technocrat. I mean, people called him a technocrat. He was the finance minister. So on the strength of that, they called him a technocrat. He does have a knowledge, a genuine understanding of some of the technical aspects of running these things. But he's a completely conventional, orthodox follower of the, current line, whatever that is. He's not going to veer away from what the powers that be want him to do. As in exactly the same way as Papadimos, Draghi, all of those technocrats, he's been dropped into power. The political leaders, Berlusconi in one case, if you remember, they didn't like Berlusconi very much. They engineered his removal. They didn't like Boris Johnson. They've engineered his removal. Scandals were used to bring down Berlusconi. Scandals have been used to bring down Johnson. Liz Truss, made to implode as well, all the rest. So you get the dry, boring technocrat. He's put in place, and his job is to hold everything together and hold Britain on the right course. And that's all his job is. He has no vision for the future. He's never outlined any kind of vision for the kind of Britain he wants to see. He's absolutely part of the globalist system. We've discussed this many, many times. And that's what he's going to do. I'm going to add one other point about Sunak. When I say he's a globalist, I mean, one has to understand the full implications of that. I mean, Kwarteng and Truss, Kwarteng especially, were quite close in some respects to financial interests in the City of London. You could argue that some of the things Kwarteng was trying to do was to try to support the City of London. Well, the City of London, as a financial centre, it's now quite clear, is being gradually marginalised, because once upon a time it was important, but in the new globalist system it is far less so. And Sunak represents globalist interests and globalist capital, which the City of London, it's only a minor part of now.
Right. So Sunak's job is to keep Britain on the right track, but that right track is right over a cliff. That's what the globalists want.
Absolutely. Well, this
correct?
is this is what is so frustrating about all of this. I mean, these people always talk about themselves as, you know, they're the competent ones. They know how things work. They know how to do things properly. And whenever these technocrat prime ministers come in Greece, in Italy, now in Britain, they keep us, you know, steady as she goes, right over the cliff, because, of course, the policies that they're pursuing are ultimately disastrous, but there is no way to change them. And we're always told that they're the only acceptable and right ones, and if we don't follow them, well, you know, disaster will happen. The fact that disaster is far more likely to happen if we persist with these policies is, of course, a thought, an idea which you're not allowed to entertain.
Yeah, but after Sunak is Keir Starmer. I mean, elections are just going to take you to Keir Starmer. So I mean, there's no way out.
There's no way out.
The powers that be, they've played this so well, it seems, that the UK's boxed in a way, because, okay, so you have Sunak, the caretaker. Okay, let's get rid of let's actually have an election. How about that? Let's do some democracy, because they always like to lecture everybody on democracy. So let's do some democracy. What's democracy going to get you? Keir Starmer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is exactly correct. I mean, this is exactly where...
Choose the door. They're both bad. You know?
Yeah, I know. This is exactly correct. I mean, alternatives, or every alternative is being knocked down. So alternatives on the left, the Corbyn movement, you know, I know many people don't think much of Corbyn, but he did offer some sort of an alternative. He did think outside the box, if you like. Well, where is he? He's not even a member of the Parliamentary Labour Party now. I mean, he's a completely marginalised figure. And so there's no alternative on the left. There's no real alternative any longer on the right. It's always the globalist centre wins out. And if you're offered elections, it's between our choice and our choice. That's all you get.
Yeah. Okay. So foreign policy. Let's talk about his foreign policy, which is going to pretty much be whatever the U.S. tells him to do, which I imagine is going to be more sanctions, if they can even think of anything to sanction at this point in time, and more escalation if they can figure out how else to escalate at this time, which is pretty frightening when you think about the options that they have left in terms of escalation. But yeah,
let's talk about sanctions. I mean, the sanction that's now looming on the horizon is the oil price cap idea on Russian oil. And how is that going to be administered? It's going to be enforced through the Lloyd's insurance market in London, which has historically insured most shipping. I mean, that's been one of the great pillars of the financial system located in the City of London. And it's been a British thing. It's something that, as I said, the City of London has been built around. And of course, the whole legal community, there's a whole big legal community that has developed around it. Now, Reuters, British news agency, says that, in fact, Russia's going to sidestep these sanctions. 80 to 90% of Russian oil is going to be traded outside this price cap. So the price cap is going to fail. If it fails, that means that Russian ships from India, ships from China are going to be insured independently of the London insurance market. So what this is going to do is it's not going to cause a major dent in Russian oil trade, but it is going to obliterate the Lloyd's insurance market. The Lloyd's insurance market is now on its last legs. And that's going to happen because a technocrat British Prime Minister is going to continue a policy dictated to him by the neocon stroke globalist power centre in Washington. This policy is completely contrary to British interests. And yet that's what he's going to do. He's not going to deviate from this 1 millimetre. Because again, if he did, he's got no independent base of support. He doesn't seek one. That's not what he's about. As you said, he's a technocrat. He's simply there to carry out the orders that he is given, and he will do so. He will do so as efficiently as he can. And as I said, he's got some technical skills, and that's what he will do.
Right. How long do you expect Sunak to remain in office? Like, what's the time window for him to stay before he passes it off to Keir Starmer?
It's difficult to say. I mean, I would give it about a year. Of course, the election, they might drag it out a bit longer. I mean, the election is supposed to happen in 2 years. But I think they'll drag it on for about a year. And then there'll be the election. Then Keir Starmer will come in with a big majority. We'll be told that that's a big change. Of course, it won't be. You can keep people in order at the moment by telling them, well, you know, you don't like Sunak, vote for Starmer. Starmer's the new thing. He's going to change everything. Starmer will come in with a big majority in Parliament. He's absolutely loyal to the same group of people. He'll be in a stronger position in some respects than Sunak is, but he will use the strength of his position not to rebel, but on the contrary, to enforce. He's going to be even more repressive than anything we've seen up to now. It's very dark. It's a very dark picture.
Yeah. That's for sure. The Duran.locals.com, everybody, and look for us on Rockfin as well. And the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.